Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Emily Bays, and I am joined here by the other Board of Education trustees. If we take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves, so we'll start from that end.
Nanette Melkonian.
I'm Adam Smith.
Julie Epstein.
Michael Hines.
Deborah Brooks. Rachel Gilliar.
Adam Block.
Thank you. So as Dr. Hines just has introduced himself, he's also here in support of this event, but not necessarily to answer any questions. We have other administrators in the audience here tonight as well to support the event. At our September meeting, our district goals were presented, and the board renewed its commitment to educational excellence and its commitment to have more communication with the Port Washington community. This forum is one example of our commitment. The purpose of tonight's forum is to hear from you, our community. We want to know what is working and what needs enhancing. We are going to do our best to answer your questions, but we fully recognize that there are some things that we cannot answer, but hopefully we will direct you to the proper channels. One last point. Our board meetings and daily emails over the last 2 years have been dominated by COVID, and we have a sense on where the community stands and would like to avoid COVID-related topics tonight. We want to focus on looking forward and the priority of providing the best educational experience for all of our students. With that, let's just talk a little bit on how it's going to work tonight. We ask that anyone wishing to speak, please sign up at the podium with your name and email address. You will be called up to speak in the order listed. You will have 2 minutes to ask your question or share feedback. We just ask that you avoid using specific names and speak in more general terms. The board will address your question and then move on to the next person on the list. We are happy to be back in person, but we did also receive some questions from our online form that was posted. So we are going to start this evening with answering the online questions, and then we will proceed to the in-person questions or discussion. So we have a question from Mary Johnson. The district is underserving the advanced learners at the elementary level. These students need to be taught at their level, challenged more, and supported by the district through their daily school experience. Ms. Gilliar, who is our chair of our curriculum committee, will address this question.
Thank you, Ms. Bays. Thank you for your comments. I think this comment is pretty timely this year because it's a subject that the board has actually already been discussing. It's one of the issues that was the reason that I ran for the Board of Education. But we are in a pretty special moment in Port Washington, I think, where the administration and the Board of Ed are aligned on wanting to review the programs we have here and strive to improve what we have. And that's why this year, if you look at our district goals that are on our website, one of our overall objectives is striving for excellence. And then within the district goals, we actually have a goal of assessing and reviewing the PEP program this year, which is our elementary. It's one of the ways in which we serve the advanced learners in the elementary school. So for people who aren't familiar, our PEP teachers do whole class enrichment, and then they also do a core group that serves people. Serves a group of children that are assessed based on IQ and various other factors. I'm oversimplifying, obviously, but the curriculum committee will be discussing this issue this year in an ongoing way, and I'm hoping very much that we'll be looking at not only what does the program have now, but who are we serving and how are we identifying the people that we're serving. I think this ties into an overall philosophical point of view that this administration and the board share, which is the idea of really wanting to challenge every single child in the district where they are. So in order to do that, we have to really understand who each child is, and this will impact the advanced learners, but it also really impacts every child, because every child deserves to have exactly what you're describing, which is to be taught at their level and to be challenged. I think it's an ambitious undertaking, and I'm very glad that it's something that we've decided to try and aim for this year.
Does anybody have anything else to add?
I would just add one thing to that, Rachel, and I think you stated it perfectly, is that if you actually look at the district goals document that Dr. Hines and Ms. Bays presented at the beginning of the year, it wasn't a specific goal, but I think the theme, if I remember correctly, was striving for excellence and consistency. And I think that second word, consistency, is also very important. And a big part of goal 1 was to focus on curriculum mapping, which I think will very specifically, this is one of the things that we're looking to uncover is, what is being taught across the district in all of the elementary sections. And through that process, I think that we'll be able to address, as Rachel said, that every single student is being met where they are consistently throughout the district. And that's what we hope to achieve over time.
Can I jump in and add one more thing that Adam has got my juices flowing on too? Since I'm being given this opportunity to say this publicly, I also want to note that sometimes I think discussions on advanced learners end up devolving into looking like there's an adversarial relationship between advanced learners and other children in the district. Talking about challenging every student is a real mindset shift that I think could lead to cataclysmic change here too, because children don't fit into buckets nicely. So you can have an advanced learner who is twice exceptional, who has some special needs, who's getting services. We want to make sure we're serving them. We want to make sure we're identifying them as well. So I'm very glad that we're heading in this direction of challenging every child. I think it'll benefit everybody that we're looking at it this way.
Thank you. We had another question, which actually aligns with the answers that were just given right now, which is from Alexandra Fagan. I have mentioned this on more occasions than I care to admit. Grammar needs to be included into the curriculum. We are doing a terrible disservice to our children not teaching it. So basically, I think Ms. Gilliar and Mr. Smith, you just basically gave the answer to this question as well, or this comment as well. It is one of our goals. Goal number 1 of our district goals is curricular-based changes that support and enable the new vision and mission, of which we are looking at enhancing curricular maps, which would allow for continuity and consistency across the district. So that is something that we will be pursuing going forward. I don't know about grammar per se, because that is more of a curricular and not in our role as a board, but it is certainly something that the district is committed to. Does anybody else want to add anything else to that? I think we kind of answered it before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, wait, Ms. Brooks.
So this issue has been raised in this district since I think my daughter was in kindergarten, which is now 12 years ago. And it was raised at the elementary school level, it's been raised at the middle school level, and it's been raised at many of Dr. Pernick's coffees over the years, that there needs to be more attention to grammar and how the kids are taught to write. And so this is something that I have been following for 12 years, and I'm hoping that with the curriculum mapping and some other deep dives into what we do here and what we don't do here, that issue will be addressed. This is not a new issue, and I, for one, would like to see it tackled. It's important.
Ms. Fagan also had another question, and it says, we need basketball hoops at the high school. Every single child can feel supported if they have proper exercise and outlet. Hoops provide this. It took 10 years to get them constructed at the middle school. Let's not have to wait another 10 years for them to be built at the high school. Mr. Smith, as the Chair of Budget and Facilities.
Can I just add that it's outside hoops she's talking about?
Oh,
we do
yes.
have hoops inside. That was her question. Sorry.
Yeah, so, I don't know the specifics on the basketball hoops at Weber, and this is actually the first time this has been brought to my specific attention, that there's a desire for additional outdoor basketball hoops at Schreiber. That being said, Dr. Hines specifically and the board is committed to, the whole child education in this district, and certainly physical education and the ability to, have access to, sports facilities during recess is very important. It's certainly something that I think that Dr. Hines can look at with the appropriate staff members, and if it's something that's realistic, it could be brought up at a budget committee meeting later this year.
Okay, those were the questions that we received in advance. We now would open it up to the community that is here with us. I'm just going to reiterate, because there have been some people that have come in now that maybe didn't hear my opening statement, but I am going to please reiterate that we have heard at our board meetings and at emails that we have received over the last 2 years, they've been dominated by COVID-related issues, which includes masking, and we have a sense of where the community stands. So we were asking that this evening not be focused on COVID-related topics, but again, focus on looking forward and being proactive in providing the best educational experience for our students. So if we have questions from the audience? No. Is there anybody you want to call up? Have people signed up?
I understand you do not want to discuss COVID regulations tonight, so I will rephrase my questions to suit that. Today is Unity Day, so within that context, I'd like to mention that there are parents in our district who feel very differently about the current public health regulations. I represent those parents. I have rallied them. I have organized them. I talk to them daily. And here's the question. How are you going to address their concerns? Are you going to step out of the box and talk to them in a constructive way? Or are you going to alienate them? And can we, for a second, stop and think and realize that that's been happening? And today, on Unity Day, can we all try and show everyone some kindness and particularly try to see those parents in the context of our community, and instead of pushing them away further and further and threatening them and bullying them, can you guys try to talk to us?
Ms. Shelfane, if you could please ask I'm not sure what your question is, and if you could please
My
put on
question is, are you
put on a
going to
mask,
address?
please. Could you please put on a mask as well? We have a mask mandate.
No, I'm not going to right now.
I'm going to then have to ask you to leave. We have a mask mandate by the governor in our schools. This is a school property. I understand. I would love to be able to take my mask off as well. Trust me.
So are you not going to take my question then?
If you put on your mask, I'll listen to your questions, but I cannot listen to your
If I
questions.
put on my mask,
Mm-hmm.
you will answer my question.
Go ahead, put on your
Okay.
mask, please.
I'm going to put on my mask
Thank you.
so you may answer my question.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I am. Did you see me?
That's why I'm
doing
saying
it.
thank you.
Yeah, and you know, within that context, so my question is, are you going to address our concerns? And also, it's come to my attention that some students have been penalized for a mask under the nose. It's come to my attention that if a student does this and is told 3 times to pull the mask over the nose, then they're sent to the principal, then they're threatened with recess taken away, then they're threatened with a 2-day suspension, and then they're threatened with expelling. And I'd like to talk to you about that, and I'd like you guys to address the fact that the state does not see those public health regulations within the framework of punishment over children. They see them as prevention methods right now. Okay, so that's my second question, and I will conclude with my third question, which is, Currently, those regulations are ad perpetuum, which means basically forever. There are no review dates from the state. Today, I spoke to the Long Island chapter of the American Pediatric Association, and they confirmed that. Currently, our governor has absolutely no plans to, and specifically, I spoke to the former president of the Long Island chapter of the APA, Mr. Chantal Shah, Dr. Chantal Shah, who's a very renowned pediatrician in his field, and he told me that there are no review dates planned.
I'm sorry to
whatsoever
interrupt.
look
The
at-
2 minutes is up at this time.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay. Theodora, thank you very much for your question. And again, we're trying not to have today be a conversation about COVID and COVID mitigation policies, as you know, we've all heard where most of the community stands. That being said, this has been a very difficult 18 months for everybody, staff, administrators, parents, children, Board of Ed. We understand that there's many different opinions on how to proceed and how to move forward in terms of COVID mitigations. There's mixed feelings on this board. There's mixed feelings on this administration. That being said, everybody is working very hard to educate our children and move them forward, get them to get the education that they deserve and they're entitled to. We have a mandate from the governor that we're following. In the summer, when mandates were optional, we did not have a mask mandate here. When the governor made mask mandated, we followed that governor mandate. So I think that your question is misdirected. It shouldn't be directed to this board at this moment. It should be directed to the governor's office. It should be directed to the CDC, because we as a district, as our guiding principle, are following what the CDC has recommended and what the state is requiring. We have no flexibility in this regard, and we ask that everybody cooperate so that we can all work together to educate our children and hopefully get out of this, and hopefully there's going to be an end date, but it's not something that we can decide today in this room together. And to answer your second question about speaking about it, my understanding is that you have met with administrators and there's another meeting being scheduled. So I believe that the administration is giving you time and their availability to discuss this with you. Is that correct?
Dr. Block, did you want to add anything? No. Okay. Next question, please.
Next person is Susan Lazio.
Hi, I'm Susan Brassel. I wish I had something written or prepared to say, because I feel very passionately about this. There's a federal law that I'm assuming everybody is familiar with, that's called Child Find, which says public schools are responsible for finding children who have learning disabilities and evaluating them. And just based on my own experience and conversations that I've had with parents I've met along the way, I think with regards to literacy, that we are failing our children. I'll just share my own personal story that I have a son who's in 4th grade, and when he was in 1st grade, I was very concerned about his reading. And an evaluation was done, and at that time I didn't know what I didn't know, so I accepted these top line reports that they did and said, okay, you know, and the same things are said to people. Oh, he's a boy. Oh, everybody learns at different paces, and all of these excuses. In fact, I even have on a report card that the reason my child couldn't read was because he was afraid to take risks. You know, and for myself and other parents, we don't discover these disabilities until the school has done their top-line testing. We then disagree with it, ask for an independent evaluation that the district pays thousands of dollars for in order to get our children diagnosed. if the school would do a better job and do more comprehensive testing, they would be finding these children and they would be getting them the help that they need early, not in 3rd and in 4th grade. I was wondering today and was going to place a phone call to try and find out where this information is. I'd like to know where as a district we stand with regards to literacy and what percentage of our children are reading below grade level.
Ms. Brazil, I'm sorry, that's 2 minutes, sorry.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Anybody? Thank you. That's actually, thank you for the educational comment, actually. That is something that I am sure that we are, I myself am not familiar with what you're speaking about in, with the child find law, but I will tell you that we, again, part of our goal for this year is to do more work on really developing an understanding and integrating a whole child education, which does include physical, cognitive, social, and emotional growth. So it is something that we are working towards this year, making more developments in and making, again, this curricular mapping, which does fall in with literacy, but I don't really have an answer to your question, but your comment has been noted. Do you want to add something?
I just wanted to add, I think that your concluding question was you were asking also, do we know where the district stands and do we know with literacy and the percentage of children that are falling behind? At this point, I personally cannot answer that question, but I do think, and we've taken it down, as a board, we've committed to asking these questions. We have built into our processes different ways to assess and start receiving these reports so that we can better question and provide those answers and also have those discussions at board meetings so that we can begin to look into providing better educational, assistance to all students.
I'll go out on a limb. I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms. I'm wondering if you have talked to your child's teachers and gone through the chain of command to the people who are responsible for the testing and have brought because it's a very individual, I understand you tried to broaden it with respect to literacy, but advocating for your child is a very difficult thing to do sometimes in a public school. I've been there, I know. I'm on the other end. But it can be tiring and frustrating. I'm hoping that you have gone through the chain and if there's more that can be done individually for your child, that the people in charge of that are going to take care of that if it's within their power. So I don't know how an individual case gets looked into at this point, but I suppose that is an avenue because we couldn't discuss it here. It's your child, and I realize you brought it up, but it is strictly, it's a very confidential thing. So I would encourage you to continue to pursue that with the appropriate people, and eventually it formally makes its way to us in a very private and confidential way. And so I don't know if that helps you at all, but it's something that I urge you to continue to do.
We discussed some of the topics that the curriculum committee plans to study this year, and literacy is being considered.
You see, this is why we're a board of 7. We all have things to contribute. Next question, comment. I'd love to hear suggestions. Or actually, what are we doing well? Mr. Geisler.
So this is more a comment or a suggestion, something to think about. One of the challenges, briefly with COVID, is that people don't understand what science is. They think it's just a bunch of facts that we know, when really it's a process. And this is one of the failures of our educational system, that kids don't understand. It's really all about making observations, testing hypotheses, being involved. I've been a little disappointed that my daughter, who's now middle school, is not doing more active science. But then I realized, you can go outside and look at, you know, the weather, you can look at migrations, blooming, you can pick a sample. I mean, there's so many things just in the backyard of a school you could do with science, but all that takes time. She's got, what, a 15-minute period, and she's got to move. When did it become kind of the way it is that education comes in 50-minute units? I mean, I understand there's logistical concerns, but maybe instead of having, you know, the core classes every day, they could be every other day, and then you could have an extended period of time to really do some authentic experiential learning. And so it's just a suggestion as kind of the board and the district is kind of re-envisioning where we want to go, to think about some of those things that have really constrained us. Maybe they're not so constraining. Maybe we can do something really out of the box and provide some really opportunities for some much longer learning. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anybody want to say anything?
I mean, I could respond to that. So I've actually seen some of this here, and that's made me, I think the balance that we're trying to find and that I support finding is a challenge. But I think we're doing a pretty good job of finding it. I'll just give you an example from my daughter's class in elementary school, where basically the kids expressed some interest in doing a school newspaper and started to do it. And the teacher ran with it and created a school newspaper on behalf of that elementary school class, which was 3rd grade at the time. So to me, that felt like exactly the sort of out-of-the-box thinking, where they did less of some of the curricular stuff, and they brought this sort of specialized project in. And so I thought that, you know, that said, you can't eliminate all of the fundamentals. And so I think something that we have done pretty well is trying to make room for that balance, and that's, you know, those sort of passionate learning projects while maintaining a curriculum.
Anybody else? Thank you for your suggestion. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would also point you to our goal number 2 for the year, which is enhanced curriculum maps, project-based learning, and portfolio assessments. And a lot of that is very geared toward authentic learning experiences.
Can I add just one thing? I just wanted to thank you for your question. I think that the district overall is in a moment of reviewing and envisioning, and I appreciate you inserting that question into the discussion, and I'm noting it if it fits into one of our curriculum committee conversations this year, because it's certainly worth talking about. You're right, we should be questioning our assumptions about what it has to look like while we're looking at making a new vision for the district.
Sorry, I'm blind. That was goal number 1.
Anyone else? TikTok. Come on up. Come on up.
I just came to listen tonight. I wasn't really planning to say anything, but since
Wait,
there
just
seems to
introduce
be-
yourself for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry. I'm Kim Kaiserman. Since there seems to be an opportunity to add something, I really liked what Jonathan said, and I wanted to just sort of direct that toward civics education, because when he was talking about our current events really revealing the problems with science education, I think the same is true with civics education. And that is an area where we could have a lot more experiential learning and a lot more project-based learning, and where, you know, kids could be engaging in debates and discussions and research that's really focused on problems that exist in our society and government now. So I just wanted to add that to the previous comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I'm going to actually read our goals in case, so we've spent some time reiterating to everyone that goal number 1 was to curricular-based changes that support and enable the new vision and mission. I'm reading them just in case somebody thinks of something to say or asks a question. Goal 2 is facilities and operations-based changes to reflect needs of the changing climate of the district. So we are trying to modernize our budget process. We are advocating for additional state aid. We are looking at long-term facilities plan and assessment of our facilities and future forecasting. Goal number 3 is a diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which does include increasing the graduation rates overall and by subgroups, identifying and supporting students' needs at all levels. So that, Ms. Brazil, this kind of falls in with your question as well. Reduce disproportionality in behavioral and disciplinary referrals, review and revise the code of conduct, include professional development, obviously. And goal number 4 is to communicate with students, staff, and the community. Here we are. That's part of the board initiatives, is to include the community liaison program, our BOE meeting summaries, and this community forum is an example. We are also looking at processes for onboarding new families. We've heard, and we believe as a school board and a school district that we should have more uniform onboarding across all levels and all schools. We are looking to modernize our website, and we've actually started that process. We are reviewing all our current communication systems and developing ways to improve the process. And we are going to be doing district and building level climate surveys. And again, then the final goal that we have this year is to basically keep assessing ongoing and new initiatives, which is what Ms. Epstein referred to earlier about developing metrics to assess authentic learning across all grade levels, pre-K to 12. We as a Board of Education are also committed to doing a self-assessment of ourselves. So these are some of the things, and I have to say, I've been on the board, this is my second term, and this is the first time that we've done district goals. So it wasn't board goals and superintendent goals, but in fact district goals. And these are pretty hefty goals that we've put forward, because we are all energized. We, meaning the board, our superintendent, and our administrators, are energized to really get back to educating our students and not being focused on the pandemic that has kind of sidetracked all of us. So all these things that I just mentioned, anybody think of something to say or add? Feedback?
Hi, Denise Paredes. I just thought of a question. And just to your question earlier, what you guys are doing right, this is a good example of something you guys are doing right. It's excellent. Thank you for doing it. I think the efforts you guys have been making for more transparency are noted by the people in the community, so thanks. I had a question about the NWEA testing. That's something that, I guess it's being done 2 or 3 times a year. And a lot of parents, I think, are unsure what it is, what is it used for. We get these hefty packets back, with the results and graphs and charts, and sometimes people aren't quite sure, what is it, and what are we really using it for. So just maybe a few minutes on that might be helpful. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to really say thank you for the positive feedback. Did you want to answer? Dr. Hines will answer that.
So thank you for that question. Dr. Mioy is going to answer some of it. I'm going to answer another part of it, and then I'm going to delve into something else, even though I promised myself I wouldn't say too much tonight, but I'm going to break that rule.
We have a guest speaker, Dr. Dave Mioli.
Hi, thank you for that question. I could go into a dissertation on this, but I'll try to answer it succinctly in terms of why we're doing it and what it's used for. The reason why we're doing it is actually there's a federal and a state law that has to do with response to intervention, what we call RTI. So we're required to test children 3 times a year to get a baseline and to determine growth over the year. There are a number of instruments that can be used, and we use this instrument that is actually the company's name is the NWEA. The test is the MAP. So it's used to measure growth, and it's shared with you as parents, so you can see what that growth is, and the report that you get is projected growth as well. And actually, last year, for the first time, we did it 3 times, which is what it's supposed to be. And I'm very grateful that we're doing that, because that really makes it a valid and reliable series of tests. What it's used for, to go back to RTI, response to intervention, is to identify specifically children who are falling below, and this gets to the question that was asked earlier. There are 2 tests, a reading and a math test. So in those 2 areas, at least, actually, I digress, but that partially answers the science question as well, because we test reading and math. So the reading and the math, children who fall below a certain percentile need progress monitoring. They need special attention that brings them back up above that percentile. And again, that's why we do it 3 times a year. That's about as brief as I can get.
And that was brief.
Okay.
For you.
I'll stop.
Can I just, I think Dr. Hines wanted to add something, but I think this spurs a conversation that maybe this could become a topic at the curriculum committee meeting. Ms. Gailey, I'm looking at you, and see if maybe we can, because what I heard from that question is NWEA, what are they? Why are we doing them? And what are they used for? And as we've also talked about doing more assessment-based conversations, maybe it'd be interesting at one point when we have scores to look at them and try to see just, you know, if there's work that needs to be done differently or whatnot, or just explain them. That's just a thought that I just had. But wait, there's a lot of hands up. Ms. Brooks wanted to say something.
I'm going to try not to let my bias about the NWA come through. Dr. Hines knows it well. So it's a computer adaptive test. I don't know if your children have told you about it, but they usually sit at a computer with headphones on, and it's a tree. If they get an answer right, they progress to a different branch or a different tree, and the test will take the child as far as the child can go. The knowledge is not necessarily confined to what the child is learning in the classroom. There are outside experiences and exposures access. So if the child has seen a show on Broadway that in Hamilton, for example, and there are questions about Hamilton that aren't in the grade level curriculum but are in a high school level curriculum, and the kid knows all about Hamilton because they know the score by heart and all the lyrics, they could actually continue up that tree. And sometimes that actually, and I'm just giving you a word of caution, if you ever see negative growth on your child's report, that sometimes means that your child went so far beyond in the previous test that their growth was predicted to be at a level that they may not achieve during the next test because maybe that adaptive tree is not within their reach. Let's say they're in 3rd grade and they've gone up the tree to, I don't know, a 6th grade level, and so the algorithm predicts that they will perform at a 6th grade or a 7th grade level the next time, and if they don't, they're considered to have shown negative growth. And that was something that was explained to me by Dr. Miller's predecessor when I said, why is it showing negative growth? Sometimes the negative growth is legitimate, and other times just because of the way the adaptive tree went. I don't know if there are other vehicles by which RTI can be assessed, but this is the vehicle that the district has been using for quite some time. And it's not the board's decision, like we don't decide that, it's done at the administrative level.
So I heard your question very differently. And what I heard from your question was, while it was wonderful that Dr. Mioli and Deb, thank you for providing that background, what I took away from it is, as a parent or as a community member, things are happening in your classroom and you're not understanding or knowing what's happening, and you're not alone, right? There are other people in the community. So as Ms. Bays outlined, that we have all of these onboarding goals and communication process goals, I would say that your comment right now has made me think, maybe there needs to be not just onboarding for new parents, but onboarding at your grade level, or looking at our communication processes to make sure as parents, as community members, you're getting the information you need. I will go another step further, right? As we talk about this chain of command, you as a parent also have the access to your HSAs and to your parents' council. You can always reach out to them and to your administration and say, I don't know what's going on. Other parents don't know what's going on. Is there anything within our school you can do? I've seen work advocated within the school where some teachers, some principals have orchestrated a grade level meeting saying, let's just talk about what's going to happen in the 3rd grade. And in the 3rd grade this year, you're going to have ELA testing for the first time, and this is what this means, and this is what this does. So I appreciate this, and I think we should, look at this as we look at onboarding and communication. But my recommendation also to you is utilize your principals and your HSAs and PTAs to say, hey, it's new and scary to be a parent in this grade, or I haven't been in this grade for a long time. Can you help us to facilitate and navigate this system? So that's just my other side note. It's not necessarily my board hat, but just from how I heard your question. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just one additional piece of information on what it's being used for. I think we should note out loud, it's also within the PEP rubric. So when children are assessed in 3rd grade for the PEP program, the NWEA or the state tests are among the things on the list that can be looked at to decide whether or not they qualify for the PEP program under the current formula that we use.
Thank you, but Ms. Epstein, I think what you got out of that is pretty. I agree. I think we should do a lot more. I don't know. We should. She made a comment. I think we should do a look at all the grade levels and see how, when you first arrive in a grade, what information do you need to know for that grade as a parent? So, okay, thank you for that. Thank you. And for the positive comment, let's not forget that. There was a positive. Next question, please.
Good evening, Nicoletta Gargis. I'm just asking, first I'd like to thank you for this forum. I think it's a great idea for the parents and for you as Board of Ed trustees to listen to what some concerns that may or may not get to your desks, or your emails, I should say. That said, I received several texts of individuals that are listening right now, and they were wondering why Theodora's question about the punishment with the children wasn't answered, about why that's happening, and thank you.
Sure. So as I think most people in this room and who are watching know, a big thing that many of us on the board and the administration really pushed for this year was eliminating the number of quarantines that we had to do so that we can keep as many kids in school as possible. I think that everybody, no matter where you stand regarding COVID mitigations, we all agree that the best place for kids and the most important place for kids to be is in school. So the underlying premise of our quarantine policy is based on the CDC, who has defined that in K through 12 environments, you don't need to quarantine kids unless they're within a certain distance from other children, which is a quite small distance, for a certain period of time. However, that relies on the underlying assumption that masks are being properly worn. Is that correct, Dr. Allen, right? Proper mask use, I don't remember the exact wording. So having your mask like this is not proper mask use per the CDC. So we need to the district needs to enforce that the kids are wearing their mask properly so that we don't have to quarantine the entire class for 10 days like we did last year. And that's the reason, because our number one goal is to keep kids in school this year. And following the CDC requirement and following New York State and following Nassau County, this is what we have to do this year, whether we like it or not. Does that answer the question?
That does answer the question. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Also, just to add to that question, to that answer, I would encourage all parents who have had have any sort of feedback for their particular teacher. If there's a child that is having an issue, I encourage all parents to please reach out to their teachers and to their principals, because they are the ones that are in the classroom with the students. So, but as Mr. Smith said, if we do not want quarantines of whole classes, we must enforce that masks are worn properly. Any other comments?
Separating out the punishment question from the COVID question, I just have a comment on that. I just want to note that in our goal 3, it includes reviewing and revising our code of conduct. And we started this conversation on the Board of Education actually several years ago, where we had conversations about restorative justice and maybe changing the way discipline is done here. And I think there are ways that we could be looking at becoming a little bit more progressive in our discipline policies in general. Personally, I don't think taking away recess from an elementary school child is appropriate ever, unless that child is a danger at recess. I'm speaking only for myself when I say that, but I feel very strongly about that, and I think that that should be in our policies. I think you're raising 2 issues here, right? So the COVID question, obviously, Mr. Smith has addressed thoroughly.
Yeah, and just to be clear, my answer was specifically regarding the COVID question,
Yeah,
and not the specifics of the punishment.
And Adam, sorry, I didn't mean to imply that you were at all saying thumbs up to all of that punishment. I knew you were addressing just the COVID stuff, but I think the punishments in general, and what's effective, is detention effective? Are suspensions effective? Are they being doled out in a way that is fair and equitable to all kinds of children? Those are issues that we are concerned about and that we will be discussing as the year goes on.
Are there any other comments?
I just want to make a statement on masking. So other parents have already given you the data and the facts, and I hope you took the time to read Marika Lyons' statement in full. I'm here to support her position and that of Theodore Tolfayan and many, many other parents that the school mask mandates must end. All adults have access to a vaccine. The virus has been defanged, and this mandate is causing harm. Our children need to return to normal. If our current situation doesn't warrant an end to all restrictions on the lowest risk population, I don't know what will. I really think this must end. Nations across Europe, many with lower vaccination rates than ours, have unmasked their school children with no ill effect. Many of them never masked them at all. There is no evidence that children, especially elementary school-age children, spread the virus significantly. Indeed, carefully done studies last year showed that children under age 11 were responsible for 0.4% of COVID spread. Yes, Delta is more contagious, but there is still no strong evidence that elementary-age kids significantly spread it. Even if they did, again, adults have access to a vaccine. This is no longer an emergency situation. We must stop imposing these punishing measures on children.
Could we get your name, please?
Maeve Caffrey.
May?
Yes. My oldest daughter, Natasha, recently told me that people are always unmasked in her dreams, and I hope the day doesn't come that her dreams are full of masked faces. Children, people, need to see faces. I understand Governor Hochul has a mandate in place, but you do have the power to start a dialogue, to be curious, to look at what's going on elsewhere in Europe, and to stand up for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? No? So I actually want to take a minute. I know, Dr. Hines, you want to say something at the end, but I just want to take a minute and ask the people that are here, the attendees, for your feedback. We did hear some thank yous for doing this, but we would love to be able to reach a bigger portion of the community. And so I would love to get suggestions from you that are here if you think that there are things that we could do differently to try to attract more feedback from the community. It may be that the community's okay, and and that's okay. But any suggestions from anyone in the audience on what we could have done better to get more people to come out? Any suggestions on, doing this again? Just some feedback on this. This was the first one that we've done this year. And if you have something, you could please go to the podium.
I think that you somehow have to engage parents, because so many of us, my husband works in Manhattan and he comes home at 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. I have 3 kids, they're small. I mean, so many parents are in this situation. How would they make a weeknight 7 to 8? It's more convenient for parents with older kids. And also, I have spoken to so many parents who wanted to be here tonight, but they have a full-time job. They have babies, a lot of them. It's just hard to do this at dinner time and, bedtime. And, it's hard for me, but this is how much it matters. And somehow, honestly, I don't think it actually gets to the school that there is this meeting. I had to go to portnet.org and click on calendar and click on day and scroll down, and only then could I find it. Otherwise, there is no way I would have even thought of it. I never knew of it. I'd like to call, I just want to tell you, I lost Susa. I want my old Susa back, and we really miss Dr. Mioli. We really miss how he used to have 5 kids and be dressed up. And I'm just trying to tell you that things have changed to such a degree that I, who have a 5th grader, I do not recognize Susa today. I don't know the new parents. I never met them. We never had any kind of event for kindergartners where we actually met the teachers and the parents. And Europeans aren't doing this. We are the only advanced democracy doing this. And we hope that you understand that even though you have the community is extremely divided, there are the parents who really believe this is right, and that's why they're not here tonight. But they're not engaged. They're not into meeting new people. We're kind of segregated right now, And then there's us who are just like, what's going on? This is not normal, and who is going to speak for us? And I hope that we can get back into the school as parents. We can meet the teachers. You should have this in a way that kids can be here and play or something, in a way that we actually know about it.
So,
Anyway,
so you're suggesting babysitting, having babysitting,
No, I
mean,
don't know
just
what-
something for the kids so the parents can come while the kids, right?
Okay, I don't know, guys. Listen, I'm not an expert on any of this.
No, but
My
your
background
suggestions are
is in
helpful.
the arts and business. I have I started my own business. I have an arts background. I know nothing about school administration other than the fact that I feel like our voices aren't heard. I feel like the community, the fabric of the community is ripped up. And how do we put it back together? How do we learn to talk to each other again? And I've gone out to Roslyn and Manhasset, and I have met with parents who told me and Locust Valley, who told me a lot of the current regulations that we are so strict about here in Port Washington, they're not that strict about them there, and they're doing just fine. I mean, I don't know if all these parents want to lie to me, and I know it's anecdotal evidence, but just last night I met them all from Roslyn, and they're not doing the PCR testing there. It is true. Why would she lie to me?
Okay,
I don't understand.
thank you.
But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Building
Hi.
on what Theodora just said, maybe we should consider having our next forum be virtual, because one of the silver linings of COVID, and I recognize that there are plenty that are not silver linings, is that we do have this whole system set up where we can be virtual. and it's a lot easier maybe for parents of younger children. I mean, speaking as a parent of a younger child, I know when I have to attend a meeting virtually, you know, I turn my camera so that my kids are destroying the half of the room behind the computer, and I mute myself so that nobody can hear what's going on, and I'm able to do things at the same time. Maybe that's something that we could do that would be a little bit friendlier to people who have younger children, especially in a time when people maybe don't want to get babysitters. And we also have to recognize there's a portion of the community here that simply can't afford to get babysitters.
Yeah.
Could
Well,
definitely
I
discuss
think
it.
that this is being live streamed, and I think the highest amount of people who tuned in was 17 people. So I'm not sure that that would solve, I don't disagree with you, but I don't know that that would solve this particular problem, which is more awareness in the community about or maybe there aren't that many people who feel strongly enough to want to share with us. But I think we made the event very accessible. We were here, we took questions by email, we only got 3, and we live streamed the event the entire time. I keep checking my phone, and there's never been more than, like I said, 17 people. And we've actually gone to great pains as a board to ensure that we had a high quality audio system so that people would be able to hear at home. Because my wife she's probably one of those 17 people. She's got her AirPod in, and she's making dinner and putting the kids to sleep and listening to this meeting like you described.
Okay, we could definitely discuss this going forward for the next one. Ms. Malconey?
Perhaps we can put in a little bit of a budget to maybe put ads in the paper as well.
There was press releases, 2 in both papers.
In the,
The Port Washington Times and in the Port News.
okay, I didn't read it that week, okay.
I think there's another question or comment,
Yeah.
suggestion.
Hi, Jessica Milwani. First, thank you for this forum. It's wonderful to have this opportunity, for the community to have this opportunity. I think for some in our community, a forum like this may be a little daunting. Getting up at a podium in a full auditorium, potentially, can be a little intimidating. So one suggestion I would make is maybe for smaller, more intimate gatherings, possibly meeting with local affinity groups, offering systematic interpretation at every meeting, not on request, but on offer, so that everybody knows it's always, they will always have access to every conversation. But again, tucking into existing organizations, partnering with organizations that are already having meetings, so that you can really leverage the voices in those communities. So I would also like to thank this board and the administration for its commitment to diversity and inclusion. That is something that I am personally very grateful for, and I think this is just one way of continuing to pursue that goal. And just a side point, another organization I belong to recently instituted an Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging, which I thought was a really interesting approach to that. And just to your question about how do we really engage the community, how do we make people feel not just included, but welcome and like they belong, it starts with things like onboarding. It extends to things like these types of large forums, intimate gatherings, affinity groups, but then also signaled in the overall commitment that the board and the administration make with diversity, inclusion, and belonging. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. You actually reminded me, this board actually put something together this year, and that is community liaison. So we have put in play, each board member has several organizations within the community that they have been connected with, and they will be going to those board meetings of those organizations to represent the Board of Education, again, as part of our goal to be more communicative with the community, and so that we could have a better relationship and understanding of what the board is doing and listening to their suggestions or questions. I will say, though, that your comment about doing more intimate gatherings is something that I have thought of recently, and I thought of it because Dr. Hines just had his first Caffeine with Mike, and I thought, well, maybe that's what we should be doing more of, coffee with the board and being, or somehow maybe joining his Caffeine with Mike. I don't know, but we definitely are looking for more ways as a board to be more communicative. I'm not going to say transparent because you all know how I like that word, but more communicative with our community. So we are looking for more suggestions. So thank you. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I want to just add a follow-up to that question. So nice here, we actually have our district goals were left for us on this desk. And goal number 4, communicate with students, staff, and community. Right here talks about the BOE Community Liaison Program, which is this whole concept of reaching out to organizations. Number 2, and I wanted to read this because you use this word, process for onboarding new families. This is something that everyone on this board has really felt strongly about, is how do we onboard people so they understand everything about the district that is taken for granted in a lot of the communication, that people have an underlying knowledge. And I think we all who have gone through it understand that there's just a lot of assumptions made about what you know and what that base of knowledge is that you're starting with. And I think Dr. Hines is very committed to helping solve that, but it's not an easy ask. But we hear you loud and clear, and it's a priority, everything you just said.
Thank you.
Kim Kaiserman again. I wanted to second everything that Jessica said, and also add that in addition to this kind of a gathering being daunting, it's also so broad. There's not a topic. So, for instance, I thought, well, I'll just come and hear what people are talking about. I didn't formulate my own questions in advance because I wasn't sure what direction the conversation would go in. But I think it would be great to do a series of events like this that were topic-based, where you just propose to the community, this is what the topic is going to be for the evening. And I think that would result in intimate gatherings, but where people would really think about what they want to say in advance, and it might stimulate some great conversation. So that's just another idea. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Kim, one thing that I would just comment on is I would highly encourage people, because we do get very low attendance, to virtually attend all of our board committee meetings where much of these topics are talked about. And we often leave 15 minutes at the end of each meeting for community comments, and we rarely receive any, except for George Porta. Hi, George.
Who's not here tonight?
Shockingly not here, but I know he's listening because, exactly, I heard it's 21 now. But, we would love to have more people from the community attending these meetings. And I know the HSAs push out about, when these are, and they're on the district calendar. But almost every topic that we deal with as a board is covered in one of those committee meetings.
Okay, thank you. It's 10 after 8. We did say till 8:30. Unless someone has anything pressing that they haven't already asked, I'm going to turn it to Dr. Hines, and we can all go home a little earlier. So Dr. Hines.
Thank you. I will not go off on a soliloquy right now. I won't, I promise. But I do want to sum something up, which I think will tie everything together, which is important. First of all, I can't tell you how much credit I give this Board of Education, not only for holding a forum such as this, but as they've discussed quite a few times this evening, focusing on district goals, which are incredibly moving. When I say moving, I mean we will be moving from point A to point B, which is no easy task for sure, which will take some time. With that being said, when you look at the second slide, I know Mr. Smith talked about this, but I know every board trustee agrees. We do want to strive for excellence and define what that actually means. But to me, just as if not more important, is the consistency factor. And that's where we are greatly lacking. And I am not embarrassed to say that. I think it's important that it's said. And when I talk about the consistency, whether it's program, whether it's curriculum, as far as the instruction's concerned, the teaching, and the assessments, which we've heard tonight, that is something from a fidelity standpoint that we have to be incredibly committed to. regardless of what programs we remove and then we insert at some point, we have to be consistent this way and this way, vertically and horizontally. And that is a whole new paradigm in this school district. And that is going to take all of us, those of you who are here virtually and physically here, and certainly those of us who are here and in front of me with my wonderful cabinet. So the last thing I'll say is, I think Jonathan said this, which I really appreciate, is the structures that we live within and abide by, the school day, and how confined are we? You know, we hear this almost ad nauseum as far as thinking outside the box. I'd like to think at some point as we reinvent ourselves and we evolve, there is no box at all. And what does this look like? I know one of the questions that came virtually was about basketball courts at Schreiber, outside. Now, some of us who may have heard that thought that was a silly comment or question, but I will say this. In many of our countries outside of the U.S., that is something that's incredibly important for students to flourish, is for them to have time, especially at the secondary level, to do things that are physical, so when they get back to work in the classrooms, they are ready to move forward cognitively. So these are the things, when we think about outside of the box, is the Pavlovian bell schedule that we all live by since 1890, but also think about the way that students need to move and interact with others and within themselves. So I appreciate the fact that we're looking at this, we're addressing this, and more to come.
No, if you could just identify your name. We were just wrapping it up, but I see you just came in. I just want to remind that we are not taking COVID-related topic questions. So unless you have something to say that's not COVID-related.
Oh, no, it was about masks.
Oh, well, we've heard a couple comments already tonight, so we've gotten the sentiment. Thank you.
Oh, I was wondering if I could still say something. I drove
Sure.
right away, if it's okay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say, I know I spoke last week as well, and I gave some facts, so I won't reiterate that. What I wanted to just say this week, sorry, I ran.
Wait, Marika, you're Marika, right?
Yes, my name is Marika Lyons. I'm sorry.
I was just wanted to, for the record, and we all received your document.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to say, you know, from a more personal standpoint, we moved to Port Washington a few years ago. I really wanted to come because of the sense of community. Sorry, I was just from running, a little winded. And I really found that here. I know everyone looks out for each other. Everyone tries to help everyone, and the sense of community is so strong. And I really found that that was so true, and I love everything about that. But what I'm concerned about is that in our focus on the sense of community, we're so focused on whether we're doing the right thing for the community that we're less focused on whether what we're doing to the kids is just and right and burdensome to them. And as I started looking at the data, what I think the crux of what troubles me is the dichotomy between how we're treating vaccinated adults versus unvaccinated children, even though statistically they're very similar. In fact, the mortality rate and hospitalization rate for children is lower than that of the average vaccinated adult. But most of us probably wouldn't think that. All we hear about is keeping kids safe, while vaccinated adults are free to basically live their lives. And it's troubling to me going somewhere and seeing vaccinated adults just being unmasked, but children still needing to be masked. Instead, children are being grouped with nursing home residents. The same rules apply to nursing homes and schools. Those residents are 190 times more likely to die of COVID than an unvaccinated child. So it just doesn't make sense to me. When I see the data, I don't understand why we're treating children this way. And it's just not right to ignore the burden that it involves. There's a lot of negatives, and I think, you know, most of us don't have to wear a mask for hours a day without the ability to take a break when we want to, without the ability to have a sip of water. And when you really look at what it's like for them, if you try to walk in their shoes and talk to them and really understand, if there's no justification for it based on the data, I just don't understand why we're doing it. It's not that we shouldn't do it unless there's a justification. It's that we should only do it unless there's hard data and a very strong justification, which I just don't think there is at this time. So thank you very much. I appreciate the ability to give a comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. we did answer your comment earlier, so we're not going to answer again, correct? Do you want to reiterate again?
Yeah, I think that the same answer is where, I don't need to give it again, but it's on, you can watch the video, but thank you.
Ms. Gilliar.
I just wanted to make one thing clear that I think should be clear already, but just to make sure we're being explicit about this. When we decided to make this forum one that was based on education and to ask people not to do COVID questions, it's not because we haven't heard the community or because we don't think it's important what you think, or because we don't understand what big concern it is. We have definitely heard you. At this point, as Adam said, our hands are really tied anyway. But one of the, I talked before about a silver lining of COVID. I think one of the big storm clouds of COVID is that we've taken all of these wonderful educators in this country and consumed them for a year with questions of desk shields and masks and how to keep children safe. And although we are still living with COVID-19, I think the board and this administration felt strongly that we're at the point now where we have our clear marching orders from the governor, and we're clear on what we need to be doing in the schools to keep children safe. And so we can take our really gifted educators and let them get back to the work of thinking about what the future of this school district looks like and what education in Port Washington should be like. So we definitely hear you, and wherever I think we all fall on these COVID mitigation issues, I think we all have a lot of sympathy for you. I think it's terrible to think that something is in place that is impacting your child badly. And so I have a lot of sympathy. We are hearing you, we're listening to you, but I would urge everybody, because we are focusing on education, take a look at the district goals. They're on our website. It's a really lofty set of goals, and I think it's getting lost a little bit in the state that we're living in. But there is really what's contained in these goals is nothing short of revolutionary. To just look at striving for excellence and consistency. Dr. Hines just spoke about how important the consistency is. I think, to me, one of the reasons that this is so important is every single question we got in education tonight, everything anybody in this room would brainstorm that we want out of an education system, I would bet is happening in Port Washington somewhere. We have amazing teachers here. They're doing everything that we would want them to do. The problem is it's not necessarily happening in every classroom across every level for every child. And so just creating consistency alone is already really changing the education in Port Washington. It's a positive thing, right? We can build a better educational system, I truly believe, just by looking at the best practices that are happening here. So look at these district goals. If you have comments, if you have questions about them, we would welcome your emails and your attending the committee meetings, and hopefully future forums, which we will figure out probably a way to arrange in a varied way so that we're hitting different populations as much as possible.
2 minutes.
You know I like to go
I had
over.
to do that. I had to do that. Thank you.
Hi, Denise President. I think I just wanted to say that we do appreciate the district goals and what you have been able to accomplish. I'm a very proud parent of as a parent in the district, but COVID is still coloring everything for the parents. And so I appreciate what you're saying, and I heard at the last curriculum meeting, I think one of the chairs said, we want to move past COVID, and we also want to move past COVID, but we're wearing the masks. The kids are wearing the masks. They're sad going to school. They're getting on the bus with their shoulders slumped down. Why do I have to wear the mask? We teach them, we educate them, we say all the right things, but And we know we have the mandate, we understand all of that. I think the next board meeting will be good because I think on the calendar is to revisit, sort of like to reassess, I guess you said over the summer. At the November meeting, you would reassess some of the policies. I know the masks are mandated, but.
Hold on, Denise, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. It's going to be at the December meeting. We said we would do it at the end, by the end of
Okay.
November, so.
Okay.
But come to the next meeting anyway.
Yeah, okay, right.
But it's going to be at the, at the
Right, but when that
December.
happens, I think it'll be good because the community, I think, just wants to hear. I appreciate you saying you hear us, and I know you do, and I don't have, I'm happy that you guys are on the board and you're doing a good job in the world we're living in. But when you hear all these comments, it's not that people don't appreciate what you're doing. It's just that it does color everything for the parents because we're still masking our kids. We're still having these PCR tests. There's a lot. And so we want the education to go forward and we think you guys are doing a good job. But just from what I know and what I know from my friends, it is a pall that's over the school year, and it is. But anyway, thank you. I just wanted to just sort of put context to why people keep coming up and talking about the mask. We do want to focus on education as well, but that's just sort of the psychology behind why this keeps coming up.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
I'll say something.
I think we should end it.
Yeah, sorry.
Can we end?
So thank you for saying that, and I just want to give assurance to everybody who's sitting here, regardless of where you fall on, COVID mitigations. We understand that. Many of us up here do have kids in the school district. I was going to try not to do this, but speaking personally, I have one kid who has now, the first thing when he walks out of school, the first thing I have to do is fight him to take his mask off because he's become so used to it that I don't want that to become, this is a kindergartner. I don't want that to become part of his identity or a crutch or something. But I want him to wear it in school because that's what the indoors, because that's what the policy is, and that's what is, that's the right thing that we need to do to keep all the kids in the classroom. I have a third grader who hates wearing the mask, but he loves going to school. So it's a trade-off that he's willing to make. And actually, he said to me the other day, he said, "Daddy, when I get my vaccine," because he's been bugging me, he really wants it, and I didn't know why. He said, "When I get my vaccine next month, how do you tell my teacher so she knows I don't have to wear my mask anymore?" And my heart sank because I didn't know, he's been expecting all of this time that I never told him, but he's been thinking that he's going to get his vaccine in December or whatever it is and take his mask off. So believe me when I tell you.
We're breaking all the rules. We're
sorry.
talking masks.
Well, I just want everyone to understand, it's important that we all, and I speak to all of these board members, and we all feel this, we all understand it. People who have parents or who have kids are not in the district, nobody's happy with the situation, but we have all kind of agreed to say, let's follow what the authorities above us are telling us to do so that we can make the best, let's make, lemonade out of lemons here and move ahead and try to move positive things ahead, which is why we all send our kids to school every day. And we understand not everybody's going to be happy with any decision we make. Many people were unhappy in the summer. Many people were unhappy last year. There are people who think we should have virtual school this year. There are people who think we should be doing different policies for testing, different policies for quarantines. We're trying to do our best, and the most important priority this year is we're doing our best, and the staff is doing their best, and the administration is doing their best for the kids. And that's what we're really trying. But we hear you.
And with that, good night. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.